In chapter number 2 for Visual Basic for application, we will be going through basics of writing Visual Basic application codes. Then we will go through writing Visual Basic instructions to be followed. And then the last one will be how to run and save the VBA codes. To start, let's first insert a module and right click on Microsoft Excel and select insert and then module. Before writing your codes or before writing your macro, you have to name your macro. The naming of a macro starts from sub. Sub stands for subroutine, then followed by your space, and then you can write your name of the macro. Name of the macro can be alpha or alphanumeric. Let's take the name as A1. Once you have typed the name of the macro, hit enter. After hitting the enter, the module or the Excel automatically inserts a round bracket on the right hand side of the name of the module or the macro, and then followed by end sub. End sub is the statement that it states that your macro ends here. We will be writing all our codes in between this. So now let's go through some of the key points of writing the name of a module or a macro. You can have an underscore in between your names. You can't have a space in between your names. It will give you a compile error. You can't have a full stop or a dot in between your names. You can't use any of the special characters like hash, or you can't use a period or a date or a dollar sign or exclamation mark in your name. Now let's go through some of the instructions to be followed while writing the macros. In VBA, things are represented as objects. Objects means workbooks or worksheets, then followed by a dot, then the action. Action means what you want to do on the workbook. For example, count. This is how the sentences are built up in VBA. First the object, then dot, then action. Once you type the object and followed by a dot, you can see a list of options are popped up. This list of options are called Inteli-sense. Inteli-sense are the words or the actions recognized by Excel. For example, add. So this Inteli-sense will help you in writing the macro. You can enforce the Inteli-sense through control and space button. Then a dot. If Inteli-sense is not appearing, then you can enforce it through control and space button, and it will appear and you can select any of the activity which you want to do. This is the guide to be followed while writing the codes or macros. this is the last part of this video. In this we will be learning how to run and save the macro. Before running your macro, you must save your Excel spreadsheet in which the macro is stored. You must save as the Excel spreadsheet in XLSM format, which is Excel macro enabled worksheet. If we store the macro in any other format of the Excel, then your macro may get lost as the other formats doesn't support VBA. This was all about saving the macro. Now let's go through running the macro. If you want to run the macro at one go, you can click on the triangle button, green triangle button. This will run the macro for you in one go. Or if you want to run the macro step by step, then you can select this step into on the left hand side, on the right hand side, and you a single click will execute the single line of the code. While executing, it will highlight the line which it's going to execute with yellow with a sign of arrow as well. And if you want to execute the codes with one go, then you can also use a short key, that is F5. And if you want to run the codes one by one, step by step, then you can also use F8 as the short key. This is all about running the macro through the editor. And now let's go to the Excel. And from Excel, you can run your codes from view tab, macro, view macro, and you can select the macro which you want to run. We don't have any macro in this workbook, so let's go to the workbook which has the macro, view tab, view macros. Select the workbook which contains the macro from macro in options, and then select the macro name and hit on run. It will execute the macro for you. This is all about running and saving the workbook.